Good evening. I'm Doug Lindsay. I'm the parent of a sophomore at Gulf Coast High School and a reading teacher at Marco Island Charter Middle School. If you speak to students about the reading selections involved in preparing for and taking the state assessments, you get a consistent yawn. Now, I've managed to bore a few students in my classrooms, but I've not bored most of my students most of the time. After reading the new specifications for the Florida Standards Assessments, I've stopped wondering how the test makers could consistently choose such dull texts. The specifications begin by discussing interesting and age-appropriate materials, but conclude with two stark statements. Texts with controversial or offensive content should not be included. Confusing or emotionally charged subjects should also be avoided. As you think about what we might have left to read that falls within these guidelines, I would like to read to you from a couple of well-known classics of American literature. At first, we saw nothing but a kudzu-covered front porch, but a closer inspection revealed an arc of water splashing in the yellow circle of the streetlight, some 10 feet from source to earth, it seemed to us. Jem said Mr. Avery misfigured. Dill said he must drink a gallon a day. And the ensuing contest to determine relative distance and respective prowess only made me feel left out again, as I was untalented in this area. That scene of public urination was from To Kill a Mockingbird, whose author was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom from George W. Bush in recognition of the impact of her one and only published book. Second is a brief selection from Moby Dick, in which the narrator and several of his shipmates are rendering a sperm whale carcass. In a recent newspaper article, this novel was recommended as a book that would allow students to see the whole spectrum of human behavior. Such an abounding, affectionate, friendly, loving feeling did this avocation beget that at last I was continually squeezing their hands and looking up into their eyes sentimentally, as much as to say, "Oh, my dear fellow beings, why should we cherish social acerbities or know the slightest ill humor or envy? Come, let us squeeze hands all around. Nay, let us all squeeze ourselves into each other. Let us squeeze ourselves universally into the very milk and sperm of kindness." In the end, we will be left with the consequence of what we start when we commit to ruffling no feathers and offending no sensibilities. A curriculum as bland as baby food. We could receive nourishment from those little jars, but they lack spice, seasoning, and flavor. Once we get finished discarding everything found to be controversial, offensive, confusing, or emotionally charged,
Sir, your time is up.
I imagine a curriculum that is so lifeless that no one will want to teach it, let alone learn it.
Thank you, sir.